Okay. All right, back again. Chris Marler. He's here to talk SEC basketball because he knows it better than we know it. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Well, I was doing good until last week. Anybody missed it? Well, we had technical issues. We're pre-recording this so I can edit out all of Chris's issues. But also, I don't know if you're aware of this. You didn't even include damn Missouri on your power rankings last week. That we got 50 comments from mad Missouri fans. Will you rank Missouri? Can you at least promise us that?
I'm not making any promises to anybody. And I'll tell you another thing, Mike. You think that you're going to sit here and pre-record stuff to get all of my issues out? I don't think so, brother. No one gets all my issues taken care of, especially me.
Yeah.
Or
Okay. Perfect. So, hey, before we get into the rankings, what any overarching thoughts on the week that was in the SEC basketball? Because again, I'm new to this. I've
yeah,
been consistently watch. I've watched every game the last 2.5 weeks, I'd say. But hell, those games on Wednesday, we had three of
dude.
them. I mean, it was incredible basketball. I feel like I've been missing out on life that I've not been watching SEC basketball before this.
You absolutely have, and I'm glad that you're finally watching it. I'm trying to pull up a couple things right here. One of the craziest things I have ever seen, and as somebody that covers South Carolina for work, especially, right? Um, you talk about South Carolina, Florida. You talk about Mississippi State, Ole Miss. I think it was A&M and Ole Miss,
Mm-hmm.
and then Georgia, Arkansas. Those are three teams that you felt like had put those games away. South Carolina was up by 16 at one point. Ole Miss was taking care of business at home against A&M, and then Georgia was up by double digits on the road at Arkansas. So one of the themes that I have seen over and over and over again, especially in the SEC this year, is home teams have been like nearly unbeatable. I think the number was like going into the weekend, it was like 150 and 18, and it was like the record at home. And I'll have to redo the math on that. So give me a couple weeks with my abacus, and I'll get it figured out. But like those teams, like I think that Peter Burns, we were talking about this on Sirius XM the day after, and he put out this tweet. It was like out of 120 minutes of basketball play, they led for I think it was in 119 minutes in like 14 seconds. That's insane. Like
Yeah.
that, the teams that lost had the lead for 99.5% of the games. I think my biggest takeaway from everything, I said this yesterday, is I like halfway through the games before Tennessee Auburn. I still think Auburn's the best team in the country. I think that Alabama has the best roster in the country, and I think Florida may be the most dangerous team in the country come tournament time, because usually with tournament time, it's like you talk about you got to have one guy that can take over games. They have at least that with Clayton and Richards. You usually have to have a good backcourt. They have arguably the best backcourt in the country. Then they have a guy that was like the star of the team, it felt like last year, and we're just not talking about it at all, is Condon. So there's just such good basketball. Like it's so deep, phrasing there, but it's so deep this year, and it's really, really good.
Yeah. A final thing before we jump into your power rankings. So, do you think what is the more competitive sport in the SEC? Is it basketball or is it football right now?
It's basketball, but I tell you what, too, Mike. It's what's crazy is it could even be like we talk about that all the time with baseball. How deep like baseball teams are. Softball's another one, and it's really cool to see this because like we for forever we've talked about how deep SEC football it is from top to bottom and all that kind of stuff, especially in the postseason. But yeah, this is like it's not just that it's a really good conference. It's that they're doing things of like historically that have never been done before, and getting 13 teams in the tournament is unbelievable.
Yeah, and you completely overlooked SEC hockey. That is also one to watch. But all right, let's get into the power rankings. Worst team in the SEC as of January 26th, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's South Carolina. And I hate to say it because South Carolina has lost 7 games. They're 0-7 in SEC play, but they're 0-7 SEC play. 4 of those losses have come by 12 points, like total. They lost yesterday in overtime by 5. They lost the other day. I think it was like they lost by 3 against Florida, who's the
Florida.
top. They lost by 3 against Auburn, who's the number 1 team in the country. They lost by 1 against Vanderbilt. They just it's I don't know, man. It is. They just cannot find a way to finish. They just cannot. It was like that movie Bridesmaids. They do not know how to finish. That movie should have been over 40 minutes before it ended. It's a great movie, but it's way too long.
Yeah,
But
I
so,
mean they choked so hard against Florida.
yeah.
I mean that was a disastrous performance.
What's frustrating too, Mike, is like they. It's not that they had the lead because you're sitting here like I host Locked On Gamecocks and I've like got my little Canva thing up and I've got my background that I'm making and I'm like, all right, South Carolina shocks #5 Florida, like, well, I'm ready to go live. And it's frustrating for no reasons, but it's also frustrating. It's like they just don't consistently have a plan in place. I feel like to go get a bucket. Now, Jamari Thomas came back yesterday. He was great. I think he had 19 points. That's a guy that going into yesterday, he missed 4 straight games. But when he's in, I think he scored double-digit points in 11 of the 15 games prior to yesterday, and then he did it again then. So that's what I would have for that. What do we get 15 now? That's an easy one.
Number 15, yeah.
Mizzou. No,
What?
no. Mizzou's good, man. I can't. I want to say I can't believe that I left them out, but I also, you know me well enough to know that like I absolutely can believe that I forgot somebody. I like Mizzou a lot. I think they're really good. They would not be at 15. Arkansas is at 15. Like, and there's a part of me that wanted to put Arkansas above LSU, even though LSU beat them. But Arkansas yesterday at home against a pretty bad Oklahoma team, and they were coming off a win. Like it's like one of the things I keep talking about too with like these teams because it's so deep. Like the schedule is you look at South Carolina going into last week. 9 of their 13 games they had remaining were against ranked opponents. Arkansas had like 6, which is still tough. It's like 50% of your games are ranked opponents. But considering how most teams have like their schedule set up in this conference, like that was pretty positive. It looked good. Like they beat Georgia at home in dramatic fashion, and then they get a bad Oklahoma team who had 1 conference win and was kind of sliding. It felt like I don't know what happened, but it's just like all the magic from Bud Walton just feels like it's gone. So.
Well, shout out the Slobber Hog, though. Again, I'm new to all this. Best mid-court logo, I think, in the damn game. That's phenomenal. And shout out Calipari. Apparently the highest paid roster in the country. He's not going to make the tournament.
Yeah, Slobber Hog's gonna definitely make its way into the internet, and probably not.
Right. That'll be the end of the Hawk Tua run. Will be Slobber Hog. All right, who's 14?
That's LSU. LSU played really well last night. They played really well against Alabama. It was tied at the half. I mean, even late in the game, I think like Bama was a 17 and a half point favorite at home. A very weird game, Mike. They benched their All-American Mark Sears in the second half, but you have to give a lot of credit to LSU. You will like LSU specifically because yesterday is the first day that they brought in Trey'Dez Green, the very young, super huge, physically imposing freshman. I think he's like 6'7", 6'8", and he was great. He was great yesterday. So, but they would be at 14.
Are they 14 because they cost? Can you tell the audience? You don't have to give the exact number, but the fact that you lost a lot of money on them.
Just needed Bama to win the first half, not tie, win the first half, and I am still upset about it for sure. I'm also mad about Arkansas because my dumbass put some money on that too. But whatever, it's all free.
All right, unlucky number 13. Who's that?
Listen, I am going to say it's Oklahoma still. I'm not sold on them. They are ahead of Georgia in the rankings, or in the standings. I mean, I'm putting Oklahoma there. I just don't think Oklahoma is very good. I don't know how they managed to beat Arkansas yesterday. Probably because Arkansas is also not good. But I got Oklahoma at 13.
Okay, how about number 12?
Georgia, which is like a pretty big fall from. And you know what? No, I'm going to put Texas there because I still don't believe in Texas. Even though yesterday, big win yesterday at Texas. Their coach is just becoming like the least likable, like in a league where Bruce Pearl is, who I love to death, But Bruce Pearl is now at Auburn after having to leave Tennessee for reasons that weren't great. Nate Oates, clearly a very unlikable for a lot of fans outside of Tuscaloosa. But this guy, Rodney Terry, might be the least likable coach in the league. Like yesterday, they beat A&M, last second shot. Huge win. They were down by 20 or 18 or something like that at one point. But this is the same guy that was crying and bitching and moaning after he's like, don't do the horns down thing. Come on, that's classless, man. That's classless. And he's got, MJ tongue out, screaming, like, let's go, like in the players' faces. Texas can't lose enough games for me to be happy.
Yeah. Well, in a league of unlikable coaches, or not all, but I can't believe you forgot Chris Beard there. All right, number 11.
Number 11, then I'll put Georgia there. That is, I tell you what, that's tough, man, because they were so great, and you felt really good about them about like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they got destroyed. They got destroyed by Florida. I do think it's one of those things too, Mike, where it's like you hear this a lot. One good example of it's like the Bama LSU game from years past, like in the 2010s, where you would see sometimes the team who lost that game. It's like they already had lost the next week because, like you just take that's such a high emotional game and you take that into the following week. Like you can't allow yourself to get beat twice from one loss, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they did that, man. Like they had a big lead against Arkansas. They jumped on them early, did all the right things, and then they just absolutely fell apart. You want to talk about a bad beat? Georgia was a 2-point underdog. It was a 1-point game with the guy at the foul line, and he missed the free throw. There's no one on the line for Arkansas besides him shooting. There's 4 Georgia defenders standing there. He somehow comes down with it, puts it up, banks it in, and they cover the spread by 1 point. There was a lot of people in Vegas upset about that. Georgia's still a really good team. I think that, listen, I think Tennessee's good. They got beat by 30 at Florida. Florida's a tough place to play. But Georgia really needs to get back on track this week because this thing can kind of slide off the rails if they don't start winning the games they're supposed to win.
Right, and I believe just about 3 weeks ago, Georgia was a top 20-ish team in the country.
Yeah.
But this conference, they'll humble you pretty damn quick. All right, now into the top 10. Who's number 10?
10, I think we're going to go with Mizzou. No, because Mizzou beat Vandy. So we're going to go with Vandy, right? Okay. Mizzou beat Vandy. Yeah. We're going to go with Vandy at 10. And I'm being nice here to Mizzou for a number of reasons because I feel like I have to for one. But, dude, Vandy, what a year for Vandy sports. Like, Vandy rushing the field. I don't know if you saw the tweet yesterday, but Candace Lee, the AD there?
Yeah.
She made the comment. She was like, there's a picture of her leaning over telling the students, like, please do not rush the court. Let us save this money for NIL next year. And they were like, get the out of the way, Candace. You're getting on the court. Pretty cool stuff, though. It was a big win. That's 2 Saturdays in a row, man. They beat Kentucky and they beat Tennessee. And it was funny. Peter Burns brought this up yesterday on SC Network. He was laughing because he was like, I tell you what, if this Vandy team gets any better, it's going to really hurt tourism in Nashville because, like, for the longest time, Memorial Coliseum has been like a haven for BBN to come in, a haven for Tennessee fans to come in, and now 2 Saturdays in a row you beat a top 10 opponent there, so it's a pretty incredible job by them.
Yeah, and I believe first-year coach, so he's doing a hell of a job there.
Yeah, it's fair. All right, up next, I'm gonna say Ole Miss. What?
I was just thinking of them choking, but then also I didn't know if it was the team, it was the coach, but carry on.
Yeah, Chris Beard is the worst, so that's a really good point. You know what? I'll put Ole Miss there. I thought they were going to go into Como yesterday and handle business, and they did not. They do have an impressive win because they beat Alabama, but they followed that up with, I think they lost to Mississippi State. So I think they've lost 3 in a row. Yeah, they've lost 3 in a row since their win against Alabama. So they have kind of choked down the road here. That was considered at the time probably one of the best wins of any team in the conference this year because especially going on the road and winning games like that, very hard to do. But the thing is with Ole Miss, then they went and lost to Mississippi State. They had a massive lead against A&M at home and somehow squandered that away, and then they lost to Mizzou. Now, those are all 3 ranked teams, and 2 of them are on the road, but I was disappointed in how they looked against Mizzou because what the staple of this team for Ole Miss is, like they can put up points and stuff like that, but they are very, very physical and they're really good defensively. And they were playing from behind almost the entire game against Mizzou. So yeah, that's a credit to Mizzou as well.
All right, who you got number 8?
Mississippi State. Mississippi State. Good team. Beat South Carolina yesterday. I'm trying to think of what else they've had over the last week or so, but they do have the win against Ole Miss last week. They go on the road, which again, like at the very least, is not the easiest thing to do. It wasn't an impressive win against South Carolina, but it was a win nonetheless. And I would have you have to have them above Ole Miss strictly because Ole Miss lost to Mississippi State on the court. So I would have them there. But now we're getting into that weird part where I feel like I'm forgetting teams because I know who my top 5 are. I'm this little stretcher. It's like a middle child. You forget about them a lot.
Well, I do remember. Again, I've been watching. So they lost to Tennessee at Tennessee, but that was a competitive game, and they beat Ole Miss. So yeah, you're right. I mean, they're kind of at. I don't want to say mid because this is such a great conference, but they're kind of middle of the road right now, at least for me.
And middle of the road here is like, a 5 to 6 seed in the tournament,
right?
And top in the country,
right? So who you got number 7?
I think that's where I'm going to put Mizzou, right?
Oh, thank you for including them this week.
You know what? Screw it. I'm going to put A&M there. I'm going to put A&M there. Okay. A&M had a great win against Ole Miss, and then they did the exact same thing that Ole Miss did against them. They did that against Texas. I tell you what, it was Billy Lucci was telling us yesterday, and he was brought the point. He's like, man, you had an 18-point lead on the road and found a way to lose it. Like they were up by like 6, I want to say like a minute to go. It was a pretty big, I don't want to say choke job because it's, but that's a tough one, especially come tournament time. That's going to be a tough one to explain and miss out on, like, because at the end of the season, like all these teams are going to be around 20 wins and they're going to be like kind of like elbowing each other out for similar seeds. So whether it's a 5 seed, 6 seed, 4 seed, whatever, they're going to be on similar lines like with Mississippi State and Ole Miss and all those kind of teams. This is a big one that got away from Texas A&M because you look at it, especially in the conference, they fall to 15-5 overall. That could be 16-4. And then they also fall to 4-3 in the conference where they could be 5-2. And the difference in that is I'm looking at the pecking order here, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8th in the pecking order in terms of the standings. They're like a logjam tied at 4-3, but they would be 3rd if they were 5-2. So it's just stuff like that. And I'll tell you where it might matter most, Mike, is the seeding for the actual SEC basketball tournament that'll be coming up here after that. Also, my phone's on 10%. Just heads up.
Okay, number 6. We lost them. No.
Not going to do professional like that. Here we go. So number 6, I'm going to put Mizzou there. Mizzou deserves a lot of credit. They deserve just to have their name mentioned. I'll tell you that. That was a big miss on my part. So my bad, Mizzou fans. I love Mizzou. Like, my best friend is from St. Charles, and we always pull from Mizzou. So sorry I left you guys out. That was my bad. I appreciate you guys calling me out unless you said something mean in the comments. I'm sure you did. Mizzou's been really good, man. I cannot name a single player, and I'm saying this somewhat facetiously, great word, but I can't name a single player from Mizzou necessarily. There's the one dude that has he looks like if you drew up what Chris Doring would look like in like a bad Disney movie in the early 90s. He was like unconscious last night from 3. That guy, the main reason I bring up the name thing is because to bring up the point, they just don't do things that are like they don't have like a guy that's like some showy going to go out and be like a lottery pick or anything like that. They're just a really good, fundamentally sound team. And I'll tell you what's most amazing about it is, and they were 0-18 last year. They were 0-18 last year. Now they're 3rd in the SEC, 16-4 start. What's most impressive about Mizzou is they have something that I think I'm looking at right now. 3 teams total in the SEC have, and that's a 0 in the loss column for home games. They are 15-0 at home this year. They've also played more home games, I think, than anybody, which is wild. But yeah, they have been great. They have been great, especially at home. So going to Como, That's a tough sell. And here's one thing too about Missouri basketball, Mike. Missouri basketball has been like they have always cared about basketball in Mizzou.
Yeah.
That place is tough to play when, especially when it's rocking. Like last year was definitely more of an anomaly, but this is a program that has a lot of rich basketball tradition, and should be, I would think, competing for a top half spot of the in the tournament.
Yeah, and fun fact for you, Chris. I don't know if I'm sure you have no idea, but uh, they were on a losing streak. I think it was like 20 some odd games.
20 games.
Cousin Shane attended a game up there in Como. They won it. They haven't lost since at home. He was at the one that started the streak. And I'll also say this about Missouri fans, and I don't know why you would ever disrespect them like that, but to me, they've got such a damn chip on their shoulder. I think they're told they don't belong. They don't belong in this conference. They're not good at anything. They're a top 5 fan base, just based on our analytics. So they're a top 5 fan base in the SEC.
Dude, hold on. And here's the thing too. It is there's things that I hate more than anything. Yellow people that like yellow starburst, press them. Terrorism. I am not a big terrorist guy. Like I don't like terrorism.
Right.
That's something that me and you differ on, and always have been. But I hate the low hanging fruit jokes. We talked about it all the time with during the SEC in the postseason for basketball. And it was like, oh yeah, well, like Bama should have got in, blah blah blah. Like Nicole Auerbach and Tom Fernelli and all those like making the same joke over and over. I am so tired of hearing SEC fans talk about Mizzou not belonging because of where their state is located. First off, I would bet you 40% of SEC fans could not pick out Missouri on a map if it wasn't already written down in the first place. Second off, that's a team that came in, and I will always say this about their football team especially. They came in and went and lost their first year. They went 4-8. They lost their top 6 offensive linemen in that season before the season started. They go 4-8. You saw Georgia doing all that bullshit about grown man football, and it's like, bro, you just went up against a back. They were driving golf carts around campus, Mike, to try and find bodies just to put on the practice squad for. I'm dead serious, for the offensive line. Then they go back and win the SEC East 2 years in a row, and if you're a team that hasn't won the SEC East when they had those divisions twice in the last 14 years, it might be time to shut up. It might be time to sit down and shut up. So there you go.
All right, top 5. Don't shut up.
And another thing about Mizzou offensive line. Well, all right, top 5. Excuse me. All right, I am going to go Kentucky at 5. I still think this is one of the best teams in the country. They are probably too high considering of I feel like it's almost unfair because I've put people or teams in some places where I'm like, well, they beat this team, so they have to be ahead of them. Kentucky has 3 losses in conference play. I think they're I'm looking at it right now, 10th in the standings. 14-5 overall. They've got some they have some great wins. They beat Florida at home, right? I'm trying to think of the other one that just happened. They beat Mississippi State on the road. They have some good wins. I don't consider the loss they had to Alabama a bad loss. If you score 97 points in a game, you should be able to win that game. The losses are what's so puzzling. You lost by 20. I believe it was to Ohio State, who's a 10-5 team. They're not a very good team. The losses are what's so concerning for Kentucky because they just haven't had the ability to get up for all of their games. I still think they're one of the most talented teams in the country, and what Mark Pope has done in year 1, especially with what's the turnover there, has been really, really impressive.
Yeah. All right, top 4.
I'm going to say Tennessee at 4. Listen, Tennessee at home is probably the best team in the country. They are really, really good, and they beat you up. I don't know what happens when teams go to Knoxville for football or basketball, but the refs just, swallow whistles. It's unbelievable. But no, Tennessee is still a really good team. You saw that last night going into a rowdy environment. Everything that could have been, your offense wasn't going well. You create a rock fight, which is defensively, Tennessee is I think they were going into yesterday. They were the 3rd best scoring defense in the country. Giving up 58 points a game or something crazy. So they have been really, really good defensively. But, Janai Broome is back for Auburn, and you're on the road in what is probably the craziest environment in all of college basketball in Neville Arena. And you lose on last-second shot, a corner three. Like, they did everything they could to win that game. They are still a really, really good basketball team, and I think that I don't see them dropping off the two line, anything below the two line in the NCAA tournament. And I'll tell you this too, Mike. I said this last week, and people thought I was crazy because I mean, partially because I probably am, but like Tennessee always fails in March. They always fall apart in March. This like up and down, like kind of like bipolar play from game to game they've had in the regular season. Part of me thinks it's like maybe this is what they need from Rick Barnes. Like maybe now you get this shit out of your system now, you lose some games, and then you go on a run in March versus like what we've seen for the last couple of years, where it's like they dominate in the league, especially in the regular season, and they get to March and it's hard for them to get past the Elite Eight or Sweet 16.
I'll buy it. I'm buying. All right, number 3.
I'm going to drop this team one spot, Alabama.
You know Nick Saban's not the coach anymore, right?
Shut the fuck up. Did you see Kalen DeBoer back down there last night on his phone? Ain't no doubt in my mind, brother. He ain't recruiting. I guarantee you ain't texting recruits. I bet he's on Temu trying to find some damn T-shirt to wear.
Yeah, what was he wearing?
God, it's like he's dressed by what's his name, One-Eyed Willie, that fucking illiterate guy that refuses to wear shoes that Bama fans like made their mascot willingly. Like what? Anyway, I have Bama at 3, and it's not even anything they've done badly because they have been great. They've won 3 games in a row. They beat Vandy like a drum at home, which you kind of expect. Like this week is like you expected them to be really, really good, and they were. But yesterday against LSU, this is what I keep saying about this team is they have the best roster and the deepest roster, I think, of any team in the country. It like not just starting 5, like the guys they put in after that are all really, really good. They're also missing a couple guys. Darian Reed, who's like one of their highest ranked recruits ever, he's out. So maybe that has something to do with it. But it's been difficult at times for Nate Oates and them to figure out the best pieces to put on the court at the same time. So I think they are still one of the best teams in the country. I think they are the most talented team in the country roster-wise. I don't know what was happening against LSU last night at home. I don't know what happened against Ole Miss at home a couple weeks ago. So I've got them behind number 2, who I have Florida. And Florida is just, again, man, I watched it yesterday because that's a good Georgia team that they were playing. But now you have let me look at this. You have they're 10-1 at home. They're 18-2, which is the best start they've had, I think, in program history. I'm trying to think of the losses because they have one of them was a 1-point loss to Mizzou, and then I forgot the other loss. But it's like if they could easily be 19-1 without that loss to Mizzou. Now credit Mizzou for winning the game for sure, but this team, I feel like they could be one of the most dangerous teams in the country when it comes to March because they have a really big like physical presence inside, but they also have that backcourt with Richards and Clayton. I tell you what, if you really want to watch just an absolute assassin from deep, like a 3-pointer, like a 3-point shooter, and I'm trying to think about how to phrase this without just saying what I really want to say. So I'll just say what I really want to say. You ever want to place a bet on an over under for a player prop? Will Clayton or what Clayton for I think it's Will Clayton. W. Clayton from Florida on his over in points because that kid is lights out, and he's also lights out in the biggest games. That he is super fun to watch.
Yeah, not only have they been winning, they've been killing people. So obviously you got Auburn, number one in the country.
Yeah,
but really came down to the line against Tennessee. Did you learn anything about Auburn in that one?
I mean, it was impressive to see what they could do when their best player wasn't completely healthy. It felt like they were just kind of not in sync. Like when they had him fully healthy, I mean, it was unbelievable to watch what they would do to teams, especially with him. Like he's just a mismatch every time he gets the ball. And you can run the offense through him. That's the biggest thing is like you can run the offense through him even though he plays in the 5. And so Broome coming back, I think once he gets fully healthy, they'll be fine. I don't think this is a team that's peaking too early. I think they're just so deep. The one thing I think is the most impressive part about this Auburn team is we have seen them before go out and get guys like Jabari, what's his name, the kid who plays in Houston now, and Walker Kessler, even though Kessler I think was a transfer. But like we've seen them recruit at an elite level and bring in like 5-star players and really good recruits. This team, he's gone out. Bruce Pearl's gone out and gotten like all these different pieces and players with chips on their shoulder from other schools and got him in the portal, and he hasn't missed on any of them. Like he's like Janai Broome coming from Morehead State is an insane story. Also with the Tampa Catholic, shout out to Tampa Catholic. And yeah, like it's been awesome to watch. It almost reminds me like on a different scale, but like you look at how Shane Beamer has done in the portal with some of the success they've had. Like you don't have a ton of guys coming in like you do at Ole Miss or LSU or these like high profile guys. But the guys you brought in, Kyle Kennard, Rocket Sanders, you didn't miss on them. Demetrius Knight Jr., like you just didn't miss on them. And I think that's really one of the things that Bruce Pearl has done is he's been so good at evaluating the talent and then bringing them in and developing them. And also, man, I'll tell you what, I grew up in a house that hated Auburn. You watched it yesterday, probably watched game days as well. It's hard not to like what's going on down there. It seems like now maybe we figure out a way logistically to not have kids get trampled when they get into the arena, but like it's a really cool thing they have going on down there.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're going to miss you, Chris, but where can the audience find you? But all your other stops before we see you again.
In your worst nightmares. No. So Vern Dumquist on Twitter, Locked On Gamecocks for all that. We still and then I'm writing over at LouisianaSports.net and running social for ESPN and Baton Rouge. So yeah, all over the place. But I'll see you guys there.
Okay, buddy, we appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next one.